Hey, Dennis O'Brien back again on Let's Talk About It. And I'm again without Susan Johnson, third straight week. Susan is out of town today and couldn't be here. And I know she's very happy. She's not happy not to be here, but she's very happy that I have a great guest on tonight. In fact, she said you should ask him. And I said, I don't know if I can get him. It's Friday and whatnot, and who knows. And I did. Jim Bellano, he is the Director of Economic and Community Development. Did I get it right?
That's right. You got it.
Right order?
You got it. That's the order.
It's the same as the state calls their agency.
Right.
The Wyndham's Director of Economic and Community Development. And Jim, you've been in that position now for almost 10 years?
9.5 years.
9.5.
Coming
okay.
up on, yeah.
You've been there longer than Jim Rivers.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Jim Rivers, by the way, as everybody knows, I think everybody who's paying attention, is unfortunately leaving the town. He's going into a different position over with NICOG, the Council of Governments out in Danielson. And he's going to be leaving pretty soon. And, I remember, Jim, when Neil Beach left. I wasn't on the town council then, but I know I was a person of influence to some extent. I was might have been, I don't know, I guess I was a judge of probate. I didn't have any direct influence. But Susan was in the legislature. And we needed somebody to replace Neil temporarily while we searched for Neil's replacement, who eventually became Jim Rivers. And Susan Johnson said to me, I think Jim Bellano is the right person. One of the things that she liked about Jim was he was a lawyer. Another thing, he's a smart guy and a capable guy, and has a lot of experience doing a lot of things in all over the state, actually. And so the council wisely made Jim Bellano the interim town manager while we were in the process of hiring Jim Rivers from among about 18 or 19 candidates. We had a lot of candidates and a lot of good ones. And Jim Rivers rose to the top, and we hired him. And I'm glad we did. I think he did a wonderful job. And
7 years, yeah.
Yeah, and we needed to do some development here. We had been lost our major industries quite a while ago, and we hadn't responded to it. I would say assertively enough. And I came on the town council, and I was very much interested in seeing these things happen, along with a lot of other people, including Jim Bellano, of course. And Jim, you remember coming in here and starting at Wyndham, and you've been here quite a while now, and I think things have gotten an awful lot better during those 9.5 years you've been here.
Well, thank you, Dennis, and you've always been a big supporter. Of course, Susan has, not only of myself professionally, personally, but also for the town. We've done a lot of work with the state. When I came here, I remember talking to Jim Finger and others and saying, well, the police got some grants and the not-for-profits got some grants, but the development side never really did very well there. And I think there was this kind of perfect storm. Susan and May up at the state, myself, Jim Rivers came in, and it just clicked, and we started really getting a lot done.
All the time I've been involved in local politics for almost 45 years, I don't think I ever saw right up close the town administration, including yourself and Jim Rivers and others, work so closely with the legislative delegation. I think it was unprecedented, and I don't mean to slight people in the past. I know that John Lesko and Don Williams did a lot, but for a while there was a period when that wasn't happening. And I saw it happen up in Mansfield when I was the town attorney with Greg Haddad and his predecessor. And I thought, we should be doing it here. And wow, I mean, the every time there was something going on at the Capitol, I'd go down there once in a while, not always, and there would be Jim Rivers, Jim Bellano, and others from Wyndham there supporting May Flexer and Susan Johnson, and it worked.
And the other thing is too. And you did come back on the town council probably a couple of years after I got here.
Yeah, I spent 6 years on.
Yeah, you did come back on. And the other thing that's been very important really is the support of the town council. I mean, I go up there, it seems like every once in a while, but I seem to barrage them with these, resolutions for state assistance agreements, or we have a CDBG grant, and I'm always kind of pestering them. But they've always been great about it. So the council has been a big factor too. They've been behind all the development moves.
I think the difference between now and the distant past is that people don't base what they do on a partisan basis. I think that there are Democrats, usually more Democrats, but the people who are non-Democrats, I mean, we work together. And I remember I used to be the one that swore in everybody. For years ago, I would be the one that would get up and swear everybody in. This is before you got here. And then I would before I did that, I would make a little speech. So I was the chairman of the Democratic Party. But as far as I'm concerned, the election is over, and it's time for all of us to work together for the best interests of the town. And some of the Republicans would say, "Oh, you don't really mean that." I said, "No, I really do. I really do. We need to. We have a lot to do here. We have a big mission, and we've got to move forward on it. And there's still a lot more to do, but we have certainly made a lot of headway in the 9.5 years since you've been here."
And in those early days, the mayor, before Tom came in, well, actually before Victor and then Tom, Ernie Eldridge, a non-Democrat, was the mayor of the town, and we moved a lot of stuff forward. So yeah, that's absolutely true.
Yeah, I was very happy to have Victor get elected. Victor was an excellent mayor, and then he had a problem with his health, and he had to step down. We waited a long time for him to get ready to come back, and it never happened. And he's still around. He's very supportive of town government, and his wife Martha, and of course they do great things here in Wyndham. We've
been working with her on a lot of promoting those things.
The Theater Guild is a great institution here, one of many great institutions. I mean, you are doing a wonderful job of pointing that out to not only to us here but to outsiders. Which is, I think, because you talk a little bit about all that your office has done in recent years to publicize our town.
Yeah, so and that was again with the support of the town council. We looked around, and we saw that a lot of other towns were doing this, and we were behind the curve, and not because we didn't have a lot to offer. We certainly did, and again, things came together. The stage was built. That was through a state grant through the bond commission. I remember Susan calling me up and saying, "Malloy's getting rid of a bunch of grants. We got to write one," and we did. And we got the downtown stuff and the stage and the fencing, but we do that, and we've had and I do try and really publicize the businesses, because these businesses are amazing. So we've had Channel 8 up here. We've had Scott Haney up here for a number of shows. Channel 4 has come up, and we've done different themes, new businesses on Main Street, renters that businesses that became building owners. And we've been to Yona, we've been to Trigo, we've been to Boba and Faux Delight, and of course Willie Brew and Stone Row, the anchors up there. And it's very important. And in this community, with the Latino population, I remember doing a whole series with Scott. We did Latino restaurants. We've done a Mano Taco. We went to Garibaldi's. We went to Mexicana. Kind of the smaller ones too, Mexicana. Not everyone knows about it. The Latino community knows about it.
Well, that all helps.
Yeah.
Well, that all helps bring us together too.
I believe so.
I always thought, I remember when we were off the air, I was telling Jim about how my father grew up in an Irish neighborhood in New Britain, and people kind of came together. My father married a young girl who was German, and it was a different group, but they were kind of isolated in their own neighborhoods, and over time that changed,
right.
And a lot of what changed that, Jim, was the factories, because people worked together in the factories. They got to know each other, and that's one thing we lost big time when we lost our major
Absolutely.
Industries. And I think I think state government, especially Dan Malloy and Ned Lamont in recent years, Kathy Austin, they're pushing really hard to try to bring industries back. It's not going to be easy to get back to where we were. In fact, it's going to be different. But I think we're doing better in terms of providing jobs, industrial type jobs, right. Industrial jobs that require training.
Yes, clean manufacturing. And Eastern Connecticut's in a very good position with Electric Boat and the offshore wind initiative and all the supply chain, which goes all the way up to Thompson, Connecticut. There's a lot of small businesses, many of them in town, that are part of that supply chain, that pipeline for EB and the wind initiative.
That's exactly what Kathy Austin always calls it when she talks to me, is a pipeline. Yeah. And it is a pipeline, and it's working. And it's working for a lot of people, and I think we've enhanced. Government has enhanced our technical schools, and they're doing different things. And they're doing, they're providing training for people that can pick up enough training to get a really good job, maybe at Electric Boat, in less than a year.
Yeah.
And that's wonderful. I mean, that is so important. And
they're good jobs, good paying jobs.
They're good paying
If you're
jobs.
young and you're not sold on college, college is great, but it's not for everyone.
Absolutely.
You can walk into Electric Boat and be doing well in a couple of years.
Yeah, I get all upset when I hear this stuff about people like us who are lawyers looking down on people who work with their hands.
Yeah.
You know what?
Yeah.
I admire them so much. I can't do that stuff.
I know.
I can't do it. I mean, if I try to bang a nail in, I'd hit my thumb. And you know, it's just everybody's got a role to play. Everybody's got a role to play, and work demands respect from everybody. And I think it's true. I think people respect it. There's a lot of respect. I think the nation is a lot more positive and a lot more together than some people might make it out to be.
It's funny. I think it skips a generation. My father was a whiz. He worked for A&P, but he actually went to Cooper Union for a year and then had to quit because of family. And he could fix anything, build walls, electric, plumbing, HVAC. And I had no aptitude for that. And my nephew, my sister's son, is in mechanical engineering. He works out for SpaceX out in Washington for Elon Musk, believe it or not. He's working on satellites.
That's wonderful.
Unbelievable stuff.
I'm just, and I have to hire contractors to come over to the house and do things, and I'm just amazed when people ask me, "You do that yourself?" I said, "No way, I couldn't do that."
Right.
I said, "I have to, I can hire somebody to do it, and I can get somebody that does it right." And I just watch them a little bit, and I say, "Wow,
right.
I wish I could do that, but I can't, and I don't need to." So that's the way our economy works. It's
absolutely that's what it's all about.
Right.
Division of labor.
It's not like when I remember my mother telling me when she was a little girl, she lived on a farm right in New Britain, because people had these small places, and they had their animals and stuff, and it was very self-sufficient. And if I had to do that now, I couldn't do that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a different world now, and we have to respond to changes in conditions. That's another thing about as you know, because of technology, conditions change faster and faster now than ever before in the history of the world. Yeah. And that's another thing that's made it somewhat difficult.
Sure.
But we should enjoy that opportunity. I mean, because our standard of living here is terrific. The trick is to try to share the really great standard of living with everybody.
We get, in my office, we get Eastern interns every semester, pretty much every semester. We just had a wonderful one here this summer. And, they'll come in and we'll say, we do a lot of social media and we need to get it out. And I'm saying, are you okay with that? Or I'll be like, do you know how to use Google? Please, they get out of the way, they say. And they're so adept at it. It's incredible.
I know. I taught a class at QVC for one semester as a pinch hitter. And I was disappointed that the kids needed to know a lot more about history, like World War II. Didn't know too much about it at all. Some didn't even know it ever happened, and that's understandable. But they could take my phone and do things with it that I could never imagine possible.
I know.
So that's it. I mean, so we're all in this together, and everybody has something to offer. And I think somebody who does what you do in economic development probably understands that better than most people.
Well, thank you.
And that's great. I mean, that's why we need somebody like you working in that position. And I think you have a grant writer there, or
no,
I
had a economic community development manager. That was Yuki. She did that and really focused on grants.
Right.
And Yuki moved on. She lived in Hartford. This was a bit of a commute. And Jordan Lumpkins, who's an Eastern Connecticut guy.
Oh yeah.
He went to UConn.
Yeah.
Bachelor's. Went to Oxford College in Mass. I think it was called. In Clark. Went to Clark University.
That's in Worcester, yeah. That's a great school.
And then he's from Plainfield, and his grandfather had ties to Willimantic, owned a lot of buildings in town, and he's taken her place, and he's 27 years old, and he knows how to work with grants. He's a sharp kid. He's the heir apparent.
Susan has met him and has talked to him, and I've never met him, but I know the name because she told me, and she was raving about him and his capability. That's great.
He's 6'7", 6'8".
Oh, wow.
He's really tall. He's really tall. Yeah, he's a tall kid.
Well, you're a tall guy, and I used to be a tall guy until I shrank. I was when I played high school basketball, I measured out at 6'1 1/4", and I'm barely 5'11" now. It's because of gravity over time.
Yeah.
And when I was younger, I wasn't used to looking up at people. But people seem to be taller all the time.
Yeah.
And now, if I run into this guy, I'm going to really feel short.
I take a picture with him, and I feel like I'm 5'10".
You look like a short guy.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, for sure.
It's terrific, interesting, and anyway, we have a lot of changes going on in our town. I mentioned Jim Rivers leaving.
Mm-hmm.
We also learned recently. I found out from reading the Chronicle, but I found out that the Chief Hussey was leaving, and also Deputy Chief Doug Glode is leaving as well. So that is the 3 positions that we need to fill that will be very, very hard to fill. And so our work is cut out for us. And I am involved with town government to some extent because I ran for a position on the taxing district board of directors for Willimantic, which I still hold. I'm the vice chair. Nicolise Martinez is the chair. But I'm hoping to get some involvement in the if there's a committee or a group that comes together to hire replacements for those 2 wonderful police officers. I'd like to get involved in that because I've had a lot of experience in managing when I was in legal aid for 23 years. I had statewide responsibilities, and I'd like to share those abilities and experience that I have in terms of trying to hire somebody, because you can't make a hiring mistake.
No,
it's got not in a position of authority like that.
And that's a big loss because usually the number 1 goes and the number 2 can move in.
Know.
But here the number 1 and the number 2 left, and so
I know.
So you have a big gap. But
I'm not sure what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But, anyway, there are as I said before, folks. Jim Bellano did serve as our interim town manager when we were in the process of replacing our first town manager, Neil Beats, with eventually Jim Rivers. So Jim has had experience doing that, and there is talk around town that maybe Jim Bellano will be asked to do it again while we're looking for and hiring a new town manager, a permanent replacement for Jim Rivers, which won't be easy. And, that is, that's a big responsibility, because one other thing that the town manager does, in addition to managing the town, he is also the chief executive officer of the taxing district. So when we have meetings of the taxing district board, Jim is always there giving a report, bringing us up to speed on the details of what's going on. But I can tell you this right now, Jim Bellano, that our taxing district board has probably taking more of an interest in the day-to-day operations of the police department than we ever had. Not so much to try to be in control, but to understand it a little bit better. And I'm glad we're doing that. We're in the process of doing that now, and we were when we found out about Paul and Doug leaving. So I'm glad we're learning more about it, because I think in order to hire somebody to replace them, you got to know a little bit more about the operations, not just the budgets, which we focused on. So
that's your budget.
That's another thing, and it's I think the town. I mean, our property values have gone way up. I think people. I know if I wanted to, I could sell my house for much more than I paid for it. And back in it was around 20, about 20 years ago. And it's just amazing. I think, and I thought going into our work, the work we all did on the community center, on the school renovation, on the Cebu stage, on the downtown parking garage, which is the most beautiful parking garage I've ever seen. It's very attractive.
It's nice, very good.
It's a nice garage. And even people that were opposed to it now are saying that they like it.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, I'm hearing that from a lot of people. And I think those items, because I would go around coaching Little League all over the area, up in Putnam, Plainfield, everything, and everybody would be saying to me, wow, Wyndham is really doing a lot of things right now. I said, yeah, I'm real proud of it. I said, I really think we are. And I think that has caused more homes in Wyndham. I mean, there's been a general increase in housing values statewide.
Right.
But I think we're ahead of that.
We did, and the commercial actually hit first before the residential, and that's really the goal. I know there's been people complaining, and rightfully so. Taxes are a little higher. Taxes have got sometimes they're more than a little higher, but at the end of the day, you look at your value. And you say that's what it's all about. It's the value.
That's right.
Would you rather have a low value and hey, your taxes are great, but nobody wants to buy your house?
For most of us, our home is our biggest asset by far.
Oh, for sure.
In this town, this is not a wealthy town. I served it as probate judge for 12 years, and I can tell you that. Oh, I think if back when I was judge, I think the threshold for having to pay the estate tax was $2 million, and in 12 years I had two. And in Fairfield County, half the people who pass away in Fairfield County, especially lower Fairfield County,
they're lined up.
They end up paying the estate tax. So it all depends on where you are. But I having lived in New Britain, which is a similar town, larger but similar, working class town like this was, only they didn't have the benefit of being so close to the big university up the road,
right.
And now this one here at Eastern that was really improved a lot, especially during the tenure of David Carter when he was the president. And it is an economic engine for us.
For sure,
the universities, they provide good jobs to a lot of our people. And now we also have electric boat doing well, thanks to Congressman Courtney, who's done a great job. To bring
one of the good guys, I always say.
Oh yeah, definitely one of the good guys who I've known for over 40 years first as a lawyer, and he's done a great job. And our future is bright here, and things are looking up. Inflation is going down. I think prices will go down to some extent. I think we have a very bright future here in Eastern Connecticut, in this region, and I'm very optimistic. Anyway, it's great to have you on the show. If you have anything you want to add about economic development or anything going on in Town Hall, now's the time, because we're going to get to baseball.
Okay, good. I think that there's a lot of activity. You see, they're starting. Eversource is out front in front of the Poya building. Yeah. They're going to start ripping that baby down from the back. If you've noticed, the old Knights Oil, speaking of probate, that was in an estate. Yeah. Over next to the old Eversource building, there's big holes there. They removed the tank. That's a Brownfields grant.
That's great.
One of the first grants that I got here.
That's
actually.
right. That's right.
And so there's a lot of activity. The Friendlies, if you've noticed, is tearing up. It's all a buzz because a restaurant called Mofongo out of Hartford is coming there. Good. And you see Hartford Healthcare doing their thing at the Planet Fitness. That was Eblin's left, but it was a short gap there. So it's constantly you turn your head for a minute, and if something wasn't there, it's there to replace it shortly after.
Well, I remember when I was working with Neil Beach and Mary. She was the social services director, Mary
DeMarco. Yeah,
DeMarco. Yeah. She changed her name. I knew her as another name a long time ago. Mary DeMarco. Mary DeMarco and I and Neil Beats were negotiating with the owners of that plaza.
Absolutely.
To put the senior center in there, not community center, senior center in there. We were going to have it as a condominium. And I spent a lot of time drafting documents and working with the lawyer for the shopping center. I was away on vacation with Susan. I remember I was we were in Florida or some warm place. I was sitting at a pool, and I got a call from Greg Haddad, the state representative from Mansfield, who was also at the time the chairman of the board of the Access Agency.
Okay.
And he said, well, I have bad news for you. He says, we're probably not going to be able to do that deal to put those condos in there because they're selling it to a private business. He said, but there is a silver lining. You're getting some private investment in the center. And I said, Greg, you might be right. It sounds good to me. I'm really glad that somebody's interested in investing in our community because we haven't seen a lot of investment. Like before you came, we hadn't seen a lot of private investment in this town for a long time. Not in a major way.
That was a big development because that was a dated center, no doubt.
Yes.
And I was pushing for Planet Fitness since the day I got here because I was a member in Danbury.
I know, I used to see you.
Yeah. And so that was really the first kind of nice modern development of an old building.
I liked it.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought it worked out well, and it ended up to be a silver lining because we ended up getting buying that the theater over at the Gilson Square. I first thought ignorantly thought that we could take the theater and modify it, and make it into a community center, and people wiser than me said, "No, Dennis, I don't think so."
It was a little rough inside.
That's right. It's too much. It's too much to change. Modifying buildings sometimes, as you know better than I do, costs more than
for sure.
building new. And so we built that beautiful new community center over there instead of having, just a condominium at the access agency, owned by the access agency. Well, they would own the building. We'd own the condominium area. Anyway, we're at the halfway point in the show. This is Dennis O'Brien. I'm here with Jim Bellano, our economic and community development coordinator for the town of Wyndham. And we're going to come right back, and we're going to talk about something that Jim has done in his spare time. We'll be right back. Matt Rupar has given me the signal. It's time for our sponsors to have their say. Thank you. Hey, Dennis O'Brien, back on Let's Talk About It with our Economic and Community Development Director, Jim Bellano. In his spare time, Jim has done something very special, which is of great interest to me. Jim, tell us about it.
Well, for many, many years, I always liked to write. I always thought I liked to write. But, you do it for work, and it's not the same thing. And I wanted to write kind of a history of the 1970s. I'm a 70s child, and sports were a very big part of my life, as we spoke about earlier, and certainly it was for you. And it kept getting delayed, Maybe this book should have been written 20 years ago. So I think I started playing with it, and then I got some writer's block. And then I went to the 50th anniversary of the Immaculate Reception game in Pittsburgh against the Raiders. Franco Harris had just passed away. And I came back from Pittsburgh with my daughter, and the light went on. And I spent about a year and a half of weekends up at Eastern's Library. If they were closed, I'd hit a Panera Bread or something like that. But mostly at Eastern, and I put this book together. And 62,000 words later, I got it to a publisher down in South Carolina, picked it up, and here it is.
Wow, it's got to be for you. It's got to be nostalgic.
Very much.
To oversimplify my sentence, I'll tell you the truth. Having been addicted to being a sports fan for all my life, which I got from my dad, and my dad died when I was young, and people sometimes say to me, "Gee, you spend a lot of time following sports." I said, "Yeah, I got it from my dad," and my commitment to the St. Louis Cardinals, the Philadelphia Eagles, and the Boston Celtics. Three different teams that are not in the same city, of course, all came from Dad.
Well, kind of speaking of that, and so one of the premises, but clearly it's a sports book, and it's riddled with sports statistics and information. But it kind of one of the premises of the book is that as a fan, I had one of the great decades, or maybe the greatest decade of any fan, because I was a Pirate fan, 2 World Series, and many NLCSs. I was a Steelers fan, 4 Super Bowls, 2 other championship games, and I was a Yankees fan, and it was 2 World Series, 3 World Series total, 2 wins. And I just think that's almost unmatched. And people may say, "Oh, sure, you like them. They're all the winners." But in the book, there's a lot of familial anecdotes in there. My mother was from Western Pennsylvania. We went out on a terrible summer vacation every summer to a small coal mining town called Republic, Pennsylvania. And one year the light bulb went on, and we went to a Pirates game. And, of course, my father was a Bronx native, grew up in the Bronx, and so the Yankees were the automatic team there. And so it's intertwined in all the sports stories, and there's a lot of research, a lot of statistics, a lot of play-by-play, is all the personal stories. If I can give you one example. Yep.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I talk about in there 1976. My father comes home from work early. He worked for the A&P, and he says, "Guess what? Get ready." And I'm like, "What are you doing home so early?" And it was like a Thursday afternoon, home from school. And he says, "I got 2 tickets. Ann's Bakery, who he used to do some side work for because he was a refrigeration guy, gave me 2 tickets to Game 5 of the playoffs." So it turned out to be the Chris Chambliss home run game, 20 rows behind the Yankee dugout. Here we're sitting, and here I am, 1976, 15 years old, and this historic game. And George Brett had almost ruined the game for us. Yankees were up 6-3. We were all happy, ready to celebrate, and he hits a 3-run homer in the 8th to tie it up. And then Chambliss comes on. And, of course, the field gets mobbed after that home run. First pitch in the bottom of the 9th.
I remember it well. I saw it as it happened on TV.
Yep.
It was incredible, and I have to admit I was not rooting for the Yankees. I was never a Yankee fan, but I'll tell you, when I see all this nostalgic stuff on Facebook and about Yogi Berra and Babe Ruth and all these guys, I can't help but give it a heart. I mean, I love that. I mean, those guys were great, and they were amazing, and Yogi was amazing. And my dad saw Babe Ruth play a few times, and and I gotta say this: when they took a wrecking ball to the old Yankee Stadium, I had a tear in my eye.
Yeah.
Even though I was not a Yankee fan, but that building was special, and it was very special.
And I talk about that because when people think of the old Yankee Stadium, they almost think of the remodeled Yankee Stadium, which came after the 74-75 hiatus.
Right.
When the Yankees were forced to play at Shea, which was just terrible.
2 years, I think. Yeah.
2 years, and it was the end of Bobby Mercer, who was my idol.
I was just going to say Bobby Mercer era.
Yeah, it was. He was my idol, and that was the end of him. There was no short porch at Shea Stadium.
That's right.
And they shipped him out to the Giants. But so one of the things you would talk about, because you were a National League fan and a fan, I saw a picture not that long ago where they showed an aerial of the old Yankee Stadium, and there, right across the Harlem River, there's the Polo Grounds.
That's right.
Could you imagine having two
Amazing.
and then three Major League Baseball teams in the same city?
I remembered it. I was very sad when the Dodgers and Giants left, because Dad would always take me to at least one or two series for each team. I saw Jackie Robinson.
Wow.
I saw Jackie Robinson play. How many people can say that live?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean that amazing. And Campanella, Hodges, the Boys of Summer, and then I saw Willie Mays when he was a rookie, and when he passed away just recently, very sad. And
right.
Those were. When you're young and you're a young fan, I mean, it means so much.
They were the game. Those
That's
players.
right. That's right. And New York was my first. I started following baseball in 1949, and it was all Yankees.
Yeah.
5 straight in the World Series, 5 straight championships. 49, they edged out the Red Sox by 1 game, and in the National League, Brooklyn edged out the Cardinals by 1 game. I became a fan that fall. My father was listening to those games on the radio. Hey, what are you doing, Dad? Mm-hmm. I was 6 years old, and ever since then.
So one of my claim to fame, and it's kind of relevant to this town, to Wyndham and Willimantic, is I saw Clemente play. I saw him his last year, 72.
Yep.
And then he got his 3,000th hit on his last at bat, and then tragically he died in the plane crash on the rescue mission in the end of December.
I probably didn't really know, or it didn't sink in that you were a Pirates fan until I went to the ceremony at which the field at Rec Park was named Clemente Field. Yeah. And I worked with James on that, and you might have helped, I don't know. And I know there was some, there's always, whenever you try to name anything for anybody, there's always some opposition. Said, it should be named after so-and-so. I thought it was a great move. I saw Clemente play many times on television, never live. But he was he could do anything. He was a five-skilled player. I mean,
absolutely.
He could do it all. Incredible arm.
And not a big guy.
Not a real big guy.
We talked about Lou Brock and his power earlier.
Right.
Clemente was the same way, in the gaps.
When I played baseball as a young person, I played with a few people that went on to play pro, and some of them were not very large, but the ball just jumped off their bats. They were gifted.
Right.
I mean, some people are just gifted. It's like that line in that movie Out of Their League when Tom Hanks says to that woman who's going to quit, the catcher, the best player in the league. She says, she wanted to go home with her husband after got out of World War II. And she says, it's getting too hard. Tom Hanks says, it's supposed to be hard. If it was hard, anybody could do it.
That's right.
And that's exactly what it is.
That's right.
That's
you think about, baseball, the number of teams have grown, but it's still, the rosters are relatively small. It's a small universe. And that's why 3 hits, 30% success rate gets you in the Hall of Fame.
It's amazing.
No other sport.
hitting pitching
Could
like
do
that.
that.
I mean, the pitching is so good.
Yeah.
But how far were you when you went for your summer vacations in Pennsylvania? How far were you from Pittsburgh?
About an hour south.
Okay, not bad.
The largest town there was called Uniontown. If anyone
I
there
heard
ever-
that on that.
Yeah,
Like-
yeah. So Republic was a tiny town, and we actually went first. This is kind of odd. We went on a road trip to a place called Kennywood Park, which is just outside of Pittsburgh, and we saw Tiny Tim there, if you can believe it. Tiny Tim was the featured act.
I remember Tiny Tim.
Yeah, and then we came up with the idea the year after. The Pirates play right there, and Three Rivers had just opened.
Right.
And so we went there, and so for about 5 years, it kind of made that. Not all my friends were going to. They're going to Florida. They're going to Disney. They're going to the Jersey Shore.
Yeah.
They're going camping. And here I am going to a coal town in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
To visit my mother's family.
Is that far from Denora? Denora, Pennsylvania is where Stan Musial was born and raised, and also Ken Griffey.
It's southwest, so it's actually closer to Morgantown, West Virginia.
Okay.
Than it is to Pittsburgh.
Denora.
So it's way down. Republic is. It's way down.
Republic
there.
is.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's way down there.
Yeah.
Denora, I don't know where it is.
Yeah, that's where Musial was born and raised, and so was he. There's pictures of him. He was Ken Griffey, the older Ken Griffey, not Junior.
Right.
But so they're from the same town.
I wonder if because that whole area was just a fertile ground, especially for quarterbacks and football players.
Yeah.
North of Pittsburgh, the Beaver Falls and Namath and Kelly and I think Unitas too was from there.
Yeah. Well, I know. I mean, New Britain was that kind of town. New Britain was a football town. I think up until 1961, and I did not play high school football. My mother wouldn't sign for me, and I really wasn't needed. They were a football power. Everybody wanted to play football there. I played basketball and baseball, but the football teams were amazing. They had won more state championships than any three teams up to 1961. It hasn't continued, but not like that. Now back then the best players were all in the cities.
Yeah.
But now the suburban towns are excellent, and there's really good football down around New Haven and West. They usually are the better teams. We used to play Stamford.
The larger schools too, because I know.
Oh yeah, sure.
You talked about Fairfield County, Lower Fairfield County before.
Yeah.
And Danbury. I don't know if it's Greenwich or Danbury. One of them is the largest high school in the state. At least one of them used to be.
Yeah, we were when I went there.
A lot of talent,
Oh yeah.
When you have a school that big.
A lot of people to draw from.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially back in my day when everybody was out playing sandlot football. I mean, I played a lot of sandlot football. I don't think we were hitting each other as hard as we thought we were because we weren't wearing equipment.
Right, yeah.
So I would have got killed. But I learned how to throw a pass, and I had the coach ask me in gym class, "Hey, you're going to go out for the team?" Because I had a really good arm and I had good eye-hand coordination. Said, "No, you don't need me. You've got other guys." And my mother isn't too keen on it.
In Yonkers, talking about school size, we had five high schools in the city.
Yeah,
It was a big city.
Yeah, well, look at all the great basketball players that came out of New York City.
Yeah.
Boys High, Lenny Wilkins.
Yeah. Alcindor out of Power Memorial.
Absolutely, Power Memorial. That's
Sure.
right. I mean, that's where the action was. That's why another thing. I love cities, and this is to me, Willimantic is a city. It's a very small city, but it's definitely urbanized, and I'm used to it when we vacationed in Maine, and where Sue's father was from, way out in the woods, but close to the ocean. So it's nice. But I'd go up there for 2 weeks, and after 2 weeks, I want to go home. I want to go home. I want to go home. Not enough people up there.
Right. Who was your big rival in New Britain? Who was the big school?
Big rivals were Hartford Public,
Okay.
Weaver, Buckley.
Okay.
We played Hill House from New Haven, and Floyd Little play. I saw Floyd Little play. He was the same graduating class as me, and I remember seeing one of my friends throw a wicked tackle on the back of his legs that knocked him flat.
Really?
But we didn't knock him down too many times. I still remember the score of that game. It was Hill House 28, New Britain 21. Hill House was state champs that year, 61. But Floyd Little was pretty amazing.
Yeah, that bow-legged Floyd Little. I remember that was his trademark. He had those bowed legs, but fast and strong.
Yeah, he did. We have 2 minutes left.
Okay.
You want to talk a little bit more
Yep.
about the book and where can people get a copy of the book?
So you can find
I
it.
have one. Thank
Yes.
you so much.
You're welcome. You can find it on Amazon, of course. You can find it on Barnes and Noble, but Amazon seems to be the site people buy books. I'm trying to work it to get it into stores, but that's kind of a job. I'm doing some book signings, so
Yep.
I'm going to be this weekend. I'll be in Danbury. I'll be in Glastonbury, Barnes and Noble, both of them.
Great.
And I'm going to be up in Killingly. I should know the name of it. Pourings and Passions, I think it's called, the bookstore.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, up in on Main Street in Killingly. One of the things we need from an economic development perspective is a bookstore in town. Everyone tells me that once a month.
We had one.
I get people
Zee
telling me
Brothers.
that.
You probably heard of it.
Yeah.
It was in that building. I think it's being taken down.
Well, bookstores kind of are, I don't know
Oh,
if their
my
time
God.
has passed, but if you mix it with a coffee shop and something
Yeah,
like that,
I think you have to.
It
I
can
think-
survive, yeah.
I remember some great bookstores I used to
Yeah.
go to all over the state, and they're just no longer there.
But fond memories from the forgettable decade is the title. If you just Google that,
it's
put my name in, it'll find it.
a sports fan's attempt to rehabilitate the 1970s.
Right.
Fond memories from the forgettable decade by Jim Bellano, and it's a must for a sports fan, I think, and also for a Jim Bellano fan. And I think it's great for us to have an economic and community development director who's an author as well.
Thank
think
you.
that's
I
wonderful.
appreciate it, yeah.
And I'm really happy to have you on the show. I know you did a nice show with Wayne on that's how I learned about the book. And of course, Wayne always is ahead of me because he's on every day.
I think I've been on with the two biggest sports gurus in town. For sure.
Yeah. I always tell Wayne he doesn't know that much about the National League though, and I know more about the American League than he knows about the National League.
He's too Boston.
He's partisan. He's very partisan in his baseball and his basketball. Okay, this is Dennis O'Brien here with Jim Bellano, our Economic and Community Development Coordinator in town of Windham, Matt Rupar, and we're going to sign off and thank the Gates Group for sponsoring our show. We'll be back next week with another great guest. Thanks for listening, folks.